what a relaxing time off. But I'm back now, and it's time for some real education. Since 1994, the Museum of Bad Art has been dedicated to bad art. Their self-proclaimed statement of purpose is to bring the worst of art to the widest of audiences. Besides their website, the Museum of Bad Art also occupies 3 brick-and-mortar galleries in the greater Boston area. The museum houses 600 works of non-art and boasts that it celebrates the labor of artists whose work would be displayed and appreciated in no other forum.
This is really a neat idea, and in a way, on the one hand, you might say to yourself, oh God, have we gotten to the point where even bad art has to have its own museum? But I don't see it that way. I see it the opposite way. This is kind of tongue-in-cheek mocking this art, right? The idea that sometimes there is art so bad it needs to be preserved, not because every snowflake artist is the same, not because everybody who puts paintbrush to canvas deserves to have their images viewed, because of the absurdity of the whole thing. I give you a Dr. Duke anecdote here. I once taught with a fella. He's a young guy, about 35 years old. He literally described himself as a communist. When I went and picked him up from the airport for his job interview, he literally said to me that he was a communist. He tells his students that he's a communist. And so we were sitting in a faculty meeting one day, and they wanted to figure out how we're going to activities that we could do for the end of the year to honor our graduating seniors. We have a little get together, and all of a sudden somebody said, why don't we do a bad poetry slam, where you have students try to write the worst possible, have faculty try to write the worst possible poems. And at that point, the communists chimed in and said, well, not the worst, just not the least good, right? He kept insisting that you're not allowed to use the word bad with anybody's poetry, that the professors were consciously trying to write a crappy poem, but as he pointed out, we can't demean poetry that way. They're not bad poems. This is the kind of stuff that gets literature completely deconstructed into nothing. Take a look at some of these pictures here, though. On the left, you have Rembrandt's The Jewish Bride. We actually covered this on the Dr. Duke show a week and a half ago. And then take a look at somebody's attempt to paint the same thing. It's actually called To Cop a Feel, I believe is what it's called, right? something like that. If you go to the museum, you go online to the Museum of Bad Art, you can scan through. They've got a whole section on nudes. They spell it N-O-O-D-S, nudes, where you can see some really shockingly bad, let's just call it erotic art. Go to the next one, right? A couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did the Death of Marat, and there is the great picture on the left, and there is somebody's rendition of that picture. And instead of a bathtub, apparently they're in a China coffee cup, and there's some weird tornado emanating from the shoulder of the dead person. Oh, and my favorite touch, who's that peeking through the shower curtain in the back? So you get the great artist, and you got the crappy artist. Are you ready for my favorite? Go to the next one. Now, the picture on the right is in the Museum of Bad Art, and the one on the left is too. Because take a look at them. Equally stupid. How much money did it cost Obama to get his portrait? He chose the artist for this. Him and Michelle were all behind this. Absolutely ridiculous portrait. Well, is it ridiculous? Does that not sum up the 8 years of the Obama administration? I mean, it really is kind of perfect. It's bad art elevated to the White House. A lot of people believe that painting of Obama was modeled to some degree on the one that you see on the right there. So what happens when postmodernism meets the presidency? You see the kind of garbage that is turned in.